All right, welcome back to another episode of the Commerce Corner from Lula Commerce. We're joined today by our CEO, Adit Gupta, and our special guest, Bill Kay. Bill, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself for us?
Sure. Hello, Bill Kay. I'm a private equity executive. I've been in the private equity and venture capital space for over 25 years at large firms and small firms, large firms like Morgan Stanley. I spent over 7 years there in the private equity business, and also firms like Apollo Global Management. And today, I'm also a very active private investor, invested in a wide variety of companies at various stages, including an early stage investment in Lula.
Cool. Well, we're excited to talk today about a number of topics, and I know, Adit, you had some things top of mind for us today.
Yeah, certainly, Justin. Thanks, Bill, for your appearance, being a guest here today. I'm very excited to have this conversation. We've learned a lot from you over the last few years. You've had some really interesting point of views on the state of the convenience industry, how COVID has accelerated digitization. I'm curious, from a high level perspective, what do you think is happening with commercial businesses like convenience stores, and maybe what's happened in the last few years that's from the point of view of private equity, from the point of view of finance, and where's that going?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that there's a tremendous wave of consolidation that's occurring. You're seeing a lot of business combinations. You're seeing private equity activity, acquisitions within the space, and then you've got obviously M&A activity at the very highest levels, like for example with 7-Eleven. That's an ongoing process. But I think the trend towards consolidation, I think, is going to probably persist, over the next couple of years as companies see the benefits of scale and also see the benefits of synergies from combining businesses and having cost advantages, but also being able to invest in things like technology to make their businesses more profitable and more valuable.
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of, if you go to C Store Dive or CSP or any major convenience store news channel, there's something about some consolidation every single week, if you think of the last like 30 weeks. And there's some big ones there as well, and in some that we've talked about. And what's your point of view of these large companies that have built multi-hundred or thousand store operations that are looking to now consolidate?
Well, I think it's interesting. You and I talked about this. There was a transaction that was publicly announced a couple of months ago. I'll just outline some of the metrics. It was 1,500 stores. The company claimed to have about 300 million of EBITDA, which equates to about 200,000 per store. And according to public information, they were looking to sell 1,500 stores for as much as 2 billion, which translates to 6.6 times EBITDA, which is about 1.33 million per store. So, obviously every deal is different. I'm not a specialist in M&A in the convenience store space, but I would say that it probably has a lot to do with, whether like real estate is included or not included. Real estate could be an important component of that. Um, but I think if you look at the ability of a company to increase EBITDA, one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot is it's really really compelling if you can increase your EBITDA, how much you can increase the value of the enterprise value of your company. And I'll just outline a couple of metrics from this example. So if we say that adding something like delivery, let's say that it added $5,000 of incremental EBITDA per store, that would be just $100 per week per store of additional EBITDA. That would be another 7.5 million of annual EBITDA, which could create another $50 million of enterprise value for this company as a whole. So for larger and enterprise convenience owners, this is really, I think, a very interesting way to think about the payback from something like delivery or food. Incremental increases in sales and EBITDA can really result in significant value creation, making the company not only more profitable on an ongoing basis from a cash flow perspective, but much more valuable from an enterprise perspective.
Yeah, and that's interesting because as 2024 closes, 2025 starts, a lot of executives from what we hear are talking about how do we increase profits? Profits from tobacco sales are going down, cents per gallon are at an all-time high, but they have the risk of going down as there's global events that are causing some of those changes. And retailers have to figure out how do we create new profits. And so food service is something that is on top of mind for most folks. And the thing that comes with food service is how do you get that hot chicken or pizza or burritos delivered to shoppers, because Domino's, Papa John's, all of these brands, Taco Bell, have figured that part out, but C stores to an extent haven't. So you're saying that just about $5,000 of EBITDA per year can create tremendous enterprise value. Um, if I'm a C store executive and evaluating that, what do I think about the time frame? Like, to build that type of enterprise value, is that days, months, decades of adding this new revenue source? How should I look about that?
I think, I think the initiatives can probably be implemented relatively quickly. And I think, what you're seeing, I guess, from your sales cycle, and maybe this is something that you and Justin can elaborate on, is, when you're engaging with a medium or large size chain, they'll typically do some type of a test, right? With if they're a 300 store chain, they might do a test with you with 5 or 10 stores. And then once you achieve certain benchmarks, then they would roll it out system wide. So I think that the testing element is probably a part of every process for any kind of major initiative.
Yeah, I think from an operational standpoint, we do see a lot of tests. Usually, anywhere from 10 to 20 stores. I'd say about our average is about 15. And what they're really looking for is that operational excellence. How can we teach the store associates to do what they need to do? How quickly can we get our inventory synced and uploaded? What are the gotchas there? And unfortunately, there's always some with the way that the convenience industry kind of lags behind in technology to a certain extent. And so Lula's really good about helping get them up to speed. But I would say it's surprisingly fast, all things considered, from the concept to what is it going to take to test this, all the way through the first round of execution from tests can be as little as 2 to 3 months. If you're looking at a reasonable test, we can see it go as long as 4, sometimes 5 months to get up and running, depending on the state of technology in the back end. But definitely faster than a lot of people think, and with a lot less headcount investment, which is where Lula's found a lot of success over the last year, is providing that expertise, providing that extra set of hands so that the internal resources don't have to take it all on their shoulders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is a corollary perhaps to the convenience space, but I'm an investor in two companies that are selling through large chains like Whole Foods and Kroger. One is a healthy cracker company, and the other is a cleaning products company. And it's interesting how these big retailers think about velocity. They look at a concept called velocity in their testing. How many units per week of a certain item are being sold? And it's interesting how they track that data very closely in their testing, and that informs their decisions about whether or not, like right now for the cracker company, we're going through another test with Kroger, which has 1,000 stores, or they're testing in 1,000 stores, I should say. And this will be the third level test, and then this may lead to permanent placement within the store.
Yeah, it's fascinating how testing works and how fast people can get moving with the right data.
Yeah, and I'll share from the other side of the spectrum. We've had brands that have done some work in delivery in the past, in digital commerce in the past few years, and they come into Lula to solve a very specific problem and say, I have X 700, 600 stores. We want to get going in 60 days. Let's go. And we move pretty quickly, and so it a lot of times is based on the comfort and infrastructure that's pre-built in the C-store space. And what we've seen is a lot of smaller brands that are 20, 30, 40 stores are just going through the first wave of digital transformation. Like the same back office system, the same point of sale across all of their stores. And a lot of that is foundational to a lot of things like loyalty, your own app, digital commerce. Uh, I would say that there's a pretty significant percentage of smaller chains that are still undergoing those types of initiatives, and we'll probably go through them until like end of 2025, 2026.
I think it's super interesting. You talk about adding hot food. If you look at certainly the digital transformation side, as a consumer and as a business investor, from my perspective, I think it's extremely important. But I think the other important element is having a very thoughtful product offering, right? If you look at sort of the dated offering of the 2-day old hot dogs on the rollers, I think it's got to be a high quality offering that's well thought out and priced appropriately so that it's something that the consumer actually wants.
Yeah, selection. So I've been in the marketplace business for a decade or more. Really started at Amazon, where I spent 6 years inside Amazon Marketplace, and selection is kind of the key foundation for everything. And so you're talking about the roller foods, but certainly looking at alcohol selection, looking at other adult beverage selection, looking at snacks. And as we see convenience now getting into the hot food selection and quality hot food, and luckily, I think most of the convenience stores are supported by some great work in the distribution world. Partners of ours like Cormark are certainly helping support growth in hot foods and kind of setting that up for retailers from small to large. But selection, I think you're right. Selection is kind of the foundation of it all, and you've got to start there in order to drive that top line revenue.
Yeah, there's a major chain that operates where I live, and they have over 1,000 stores in the Mid Atlantic, and they offered pizza in the last several months. And I have a friend that's an exec at the company, and he said it's doing well. It's performing ahead of their expectations, but he said they did a lot of work in advance before they undertook pizza. Obviously, that's a very competitive category. You're going up against major chains like Domino's and Papa John's, and lots of small mom and pop operators as well.
Well, it's interesting with convenience stores. One of the things that I kind of looked at as Audit and I were starting to talk is the advantage of proximity to customers. We had a chance to talk to one of our advisors, Art Sebastian, yesterday, in the concept of like convenience stores see 160 million consumers on a daily basis, foot traffic. And it's because of the proximity to where they live and work. And so, as convenience stores get into hot food, even something as competitive as pizza, that little bit of proximity advantage can be huge for these folks.
But I think it's got, as a consumer, I mean, I think it's got to be a quality offering, right?
Sure.
It's got
Yeah,
to be a quality
absolutely.
offering, or maybe it's a price offering. I mean, I had a contractor at my house yesterday, and he was doing some work, and he said, I'm going to step out and get some lunch. And he came back, and he was finishing up a slice of pizza. He went into a pizza shop and got a couple of slices. Why couldn't he go to a convenience store and get a couple of slices? I'm sure there's many that offer a quality offering. So I think that's an opportunity for the industry, but I think they've got to deliver a product that the customer wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just double clicking on that quality offering from a CPG perspective. Bill, you've invested in some really awesome CPG brands as well. For all the folks that are building CPG brands and are looking at the convenience channel for exposure or increased sales, any words of wisdom or advice or observations that you've seen on how do you build something that has very quick shelf velocity from a product perspective?
Well, I mean, the products that we currently are focused on right now, they tend to be more focused more towards the Targets and the grocery chains of the world. We're going to need to configure a smaller portion size for the convenience space. It's such a huge opportunity. So that's really kind of that's more like a phase two opportunity. But you got to have, I mean, you're fighting against major industry players like Mars and others for shelf space. So and just go walk down the snack aisle in any convenience store, and there's a lot of competition. And also you're seeing, interestingly, like for example, 7-Eleven has some of their own store brands, and maybe there's other large chains that have their own store brand. I mean, 7-Eleven, I believe, has energy drinks, and they have other beverage products which are private labeled. That
Mhm.
maybe there's a better margin for them versus the independents.
Yep, we're seeing that more and more as we serve larger chains that are in 7, 8, 10 geographies. They want to build a commissary. They want to have their own white label products, and the benefits are in the margins per product. At
I don't know if
points.
you guys have perspective on how well that's been received by the consumer. I mean, you're going to buy a 7-Eleven bag of chips versus Doritos. Maybe if it's cheaper, maybe if the quality is equal.
Yeah, it depends on the sourcing. Taking into account if it's a quality product that's on par with the uh, big box, sort of well-known CPG brand. I think that a lot of the consumer interest will likely be in the marketing. And we actually had a blog post the other day of how you should evaluate independent revenue streams with just operational excellence and make sure that independent revenue stream is optimized. So what I've seen is a lot of big brands start to have their own white labeled experience, but then not know how to maybe increase sales of those specific products, how to increase exposure. Yeah, and it's hard to evaluate kind of one on one. What are the marketing things that you could do to increase sales of those
Well,
very
I guess
specific?
one big advantage they have is placement, right? They can give themselves good
Yeah,
placement by the register. They can give themselves good placement in the cooler,
Yep, and even more
but
so digitally.
that only goes so far.
And digitally, what we see with Amazon is the minute you choose a top name brand, it's this, Amazon recommends brand, which they're either making money off of the advertising of it, or it's their own produced brand. So yeah, lots of strategies that are evolving here
But
in
at
our
the end of
space.
the day, there are some consumers that are more price sensitive, right? So
Sure.
they might tilt towards the value offering.
Yep.
Just like you see the same thing in the grocery store, right? What are all the major retailers doing now? They're trying to build out and expand their private label offerings because the margins are better. And also, given the very high levels of inflation that we've had, particularly coming out of COVID, it's not just about the rate of inflation, but it's about absolute price levels. And I think we can all agree that absolute price levels are probably not going to go back to where they were in 2019, 2020. So I think what you're seeing is, I think there's a large segment of the marketplace that is value oriented
Yeah.
and tilting towards lower price point products.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of brands add value meals to their product assortment and value bundles, and that's now propagating upstream to ecom, where the in-store value combos are now sort of the top pick people want to add to their ecom listing. But taking a step back here, Bill, I know that a lot of the concentration here is explosive value creation or enterprise value creation, and so increasing profits through white label products, adding digital commerce to increase annualized EBITDA per year. If you're kind of giving advice to younger entrepreneurs that are looking to start their chain or growing their chain from 20 stores to 50 stores, maybe what are some top things to think about in the next 12 months of operating?
I would give maybe an analogy. I've been active in the commercial real estate market, particularly in the multifamily space, and I'd maybe just give an example, which I think has direct applicability when you think about ways to drive value and profit for convenience store business. So apartment communities trade off of something called multiples of NOI, net operating income, and that's a metric that's used across a pretty wide variety of different types of commercial real estate, whether it's senior living or whether it's industrial warehouses. And so when you buy a community, where an investor or a group of investors buys an apartment community, um, let's say that they buy it at a 5% cap rate, which translates to 20 times NOI. There's a multiplier, you divide by 100. And so if something sells at a 4 cap rate, it's essentially selling for 25 times NOI. So if you're an operator, once you've bought that community as part of your business plan, one of the strategies is to look for as many ways as you can to drive NOI. Every dollar of NOI increase has a multiplier effect, 20 to 25 times in terms of value creation. So what are the types of things that an operator can do? Like, for example, in the multifamily space, they can do things like charge pet fees. They can put in tech packages, smart locks. They can charge for assigned parking spaces. There are lots of very innovative ways that people have found to increase revenues, where a resident is willing to pay those extra fees. And so I think if you put that mindset into the convenience store space, there's not like one thing that's going to make your business incrementally profitable. It's probably going to be a series of things. So I think it's about identifying opportunities to increase your profitability across your business. So it's not going to be one single thing. I think it's going to be a variety of initiatives in aggregate.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic advice. Well, lots of really good things to chew on here for operators and specialists here in our convenience space and around the world. So, any last thoughts, Bill, before we wrap up here?
Well, I would just love to maybe hear like 30 seconds from both of you about what your key challenges and opportunities are for 2025.
Yeah, I can jump in first here. I think similarly to what you said, how do you increase net operating income? We're looking at different ways we can add value for our retailers. Our retailers trust us to think about advice on how they either operate more efficiently and save what they are spending today, or to drive increases, whether it's in first party or third party or marketing expenses, et cetera. And so for us, we're thinking of challenges like how do we efficiently build in AI to our operations to drive that growth while scaling our internal operations. And we think about what are the unique channels and ways that we can drive value to our retailers. And we've already, I'd say, hit on quite a few of them at the end of this year and have several more planned in 2025. Adit, what would you add to that?
I agree with all the above. And the only observation I would add is I continue to see brands have operating deficit from a labor perspective in the expertise they have in the chain. Large chains have 1, 2 people max that are managing 6, 7 initiatives, and they're burnt out, they're underwater. And from a 2025 perspective, because of LLMs and the democratization of technology and vertically specific data and convenience, we could do a lot of things that offset the need of having a human that do those tasks. I'll give you an example. We've added 4 new features in the last month that increase satisfaction for customers that are ordering for C-stores, increase profits through counter disputing disputes when necessary, and a lot of other examples like that. Previously, those were tasks that humans would have to do. They're not fun tasks. And so I think the opportunity ahead is identifying as many tasks that we can offload and get it done perfectly so we can help our stores and our partners save some time and make some more money.
Yeah,
So that's all. Back to you, Justin.
cool. Well, Bill, it was fantastic talking to you. Thank you again so much for your time today. Adit, thanks for joining us. And we will see everybody soon at another episode of the Commerce Corner. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well,